Norfolk's waterfront hums with a restless Friday night, bar doors yawning open, ship horns far out in the bay, a thin salt smell threading through the blocks east of Granby Street. Darius Cole parks his truck beside a corner bodega with a flickering open sign and kills the engine. The cab light drops a soft circle over the passenger seat. Canvas duffel, taped-up focus mitts, a sweat-dark boxing coach's tee. He just finished a session with the kids at the rec center. Jab, breathe, don't rush, and promised himself milk and bread before heading home. He steps out, tall and steady in a gray hoodie, shoulders relaxed the way years of training taught him to hold them. The air is cool and close. He catches a ripple at the edge of the block, 3 shapes folded into a doorway across the street. They don't move. That's fine. He's not here for trouble. Door chime tings as he enters, and the clerk behind the plexiglass nods without looking up from his phone. Milk, bread, bananas for tomorrow. Darius grabs them in a quiet loop and pays cash. He leaves the change in the tip jar, catching his reflection in the convex security mirror. A calm man, early 40s, with a face that looks like it has been rained on and dried 1,000 times. If he's tired, it doesn't show. If he's worried, he never lets it. Outside, the street's a shallow aquarium of amber sodium light. The 3 shapes in the doorway are 5 now, drifting into the open like fish sensing food. Hoods up, knuckles tucked into pockets, one with a chain around his wrist, another with a fresh buzz cut, a third with a file that never reaches his eyes. Their energy is loud even before they speak. "Yo," says Chain Wrist, stepping until his sneakers knock the curb. "Where you headed, big man?" Darius shifts the grocery bag to his left hand. "Home," Buzzcut smirks. "Wrong block for that." The smile that never reaches his eyes tightens into something sharper. "We've seen you. Strutting, acting like you own it." His voice lifts at the edges, a brittle taunt. "People like you always think you can walk wherever you want." It isn't the first time Darius has heard this shape of sentence. He doesn't answer. He weighs space and angles instead. Distance to the truck, the slant of the curb, the dark window above the bodega where someone's silhouette hesitates behind a curtain. He sets the bag on the hood, careful with the eggs. Chain Wrist steps closer, rolling his shoulders like he's warming up. "You deaf?" Darius keeps his hands where they can be seen, palms relaxed, fingers loose. "No." "Good," says Buzzcut. "Then hear this." He bumps Darius with a shoulder, a test shove designed to see how much he'll give. Darius gives almost nothing. Weight sinks through his heels, spine long, eyes level. The smile that never reaches his eyes tilts his head. "Think he's tough." On the second shove, Darius's right sleeve rides up. Just an inch, just enough for the light to find ink, a trident, a pistol, an anchor, a flint-eyed eagle, the old-school Navy SEAL trident rendered in clean lines. Beneath it, on the inner forearm where the skin is tender, a small script only the close can read. "Only easy day." Buzzcut sees it first. His mouth stops moving. Chain Wrist's eyes snag on the golden black lines and widen like someone cracked the room open. "Yo!" he whispers, voice suddenly paper thin. Is that real?" Darius doesn't move. The old quiet settles over him, the one that used to hang before doors were breached, before the surf swallowed the moonlight. He says nothing because nothing is needed. The tattoo is a biography in shorthand. The smile that never reaches his eyes tries to laugh, but it lands wrong. Tattoos don't mean anything. He says it like a prayer he doesn't believe. His gaze keeps darting to the trident, then to Darius's shoulders, then to the blank, unreadable calm in Darius's face. Chain Wrist backs a half step. He isn't thinking about the chain now. He's thinking about the videos, the documentaries, the headlines about men who ran miles underwater and made the ocean blink first. His bravado falters. "Man, From the doorway behind them, 2 more drift out, late to the script they thought they were writing. One carries a cheap extendable baton, the kind you can buy in a store that sells trouble under fluorescent lights. He flicks it and the metal snaps out with a clack that tries too hard to frighten. "Put that away," Darius says, finally. His voice is low, even, unhurried. He doesn't raise it. He doesn't have to. "Go home." "Or what?" Batten Boy taunts, but there's a tremor sitting under the words, a buzz he can't hide. Darius turns his right forearm just enough that the trident squares to them. He doesn't posture. He simply lets light and history do the talking. "I'm not here to hurt anyone," he says, "but if you step forward, I will stop you. Decide what you want to remember about tonight." A siren murmurs somewhere, far off and indifferent, the city's metronome. Above, the curtain at the bodega window moves again. Someone is filming now. Darius can feel the little red eye of a phone catching everything. Buzzcut's bravado collapses first. "Man, chill," he says to the others, a quick whisper that wants to be a command. "He's military." He swallows. "He's that military." Baton Boy's chin lifts, trying to reclaim altitude. "He ain't now," but his wrist lowers a degree. Sweat glosses his temple where the light finds him. "Go home," Darius repeats. He tips his chin toward the shadows behind them, offering a door that doesn't slam shut on pride. "No one needs the cops, no one needs the hospital. Walk away." For a second, the alley holds its breath. Choices pile up like cars at a red light. Chain Wrist twitches his shoulders and looks at the others, searching for a reason to stay. The smile that never reaches his eyes goes flat. He isn't smiling anymore. "Forget it," Buzzcut mutters. He grabs Baton Boy's sleeve and tugs. "Not tonight." They back away in sloppy unison, trying to spin the retreat into swagger. The baton clicks shut with a guilty snap. Footsteps scrape. A last glare tossed like a rock that doesn't reach the target. Then they are at the corner, then around it, then gone, leaving only the street's hum and the soft carton rattle of eggs in a bag. Darius doesn't move for 3 beats. He lets the adrenaline walk itself down the stairs of his spine. He knows how quickly quiet can fracture. He's lived entire years in that thin seam. When his pulse checks in at normal, he picks up the groceries again, tucks the sleeve back over the ink, and breathes. The bodega door opens. The clerk steps out halfway, phone still in hand, eyes wide. "You good?" "I'm good," Darius says. He nods toward the empty corner. They're done. From somewhere deeper in the block, a young voice calls, "Yo, I got it on video!" The words bounce off Brick, excited, buzzing toward the kind of attention Darius spends his life avoiding. He keeps his gaze on the truck, on the milk and bread and bananas waiting to be put away in a quiet kitchen. He came for groceries, not a headline. As he reaches for the door handle, the sleeve slides up again. The trident catches one last glint of amber, an old promise shining through a new night, then disappears beneath gray cotton, the way it always has. By the time Darius pulls into his driveway, headlights sweeping across the familiar brick of his small townhouse, his phone is already vibrating. He ignores it at first. Groceries go in the fridge, the bread on the counter, the bananas in their bowl. His ritual is simple. Order before sleep. Only when the silence of the house settles does he glance at the screen. Missed calls. Texts stacked like bricks. From friends at the gym, from old teammates, even from a neighbor across the street. "That you on Granby?" "Bro, you trending." Darius exhales slowly. He knows what this means. Someone filmed. He'd felt the lens in the window, the way the air shifted. He taps a link, and the video fills the screen. Grainy but clear. Him standing calm under sodium light, 5 men circling, then the trident glinting as he told them, "Go home." The caption screams, "Gang tries to jump stranger, sees Navy SEAL tattoo, runs." Comments fly by faster than he can read. Respect. This man's a beast. Imagine thinking you can mess with a SEAL. Darius locks the phone and sets it face down. He doesn't want this storm. The whole point of leaving the teams was to step into quiet. No cameras, no attention, just teaching kids how to jab and breathe. But storms don't ask for permission. By morning, neighbors are talking. On the way to his truck, Darius overhears whispers, "That's him, right there." Children point, mimicking chest compressions like they've seen on TV, though here they're reenacting the calm stance he held in the video. At the rec center, the kids crowd him. "Coach D, you're famous," one shouts, waving a phone. "You scared him just by standing there." Darius shakes his head. It's not about scaring people. It's about not letting fear own you. "But they ran," another kid says, eyes wide. "You didn't even swing." "Because I didn't need to," Darius answers. His tone is steady, but his chest feels heavy. He didn't come here to be a legend. He came here to make sure these kids found strength without fists. Across town, the gang huddles in a cluttered apartment, the glow of the same video painting their faces. Buzzcut paces, chain smoking, muttering. It's everywhere. People clowning us. Baton Boy slams his fist into the table. "We didn't know, man. How were we supposed to know he was that?" The smile that never reached his eyes is gone entirely. His voice is flat. "We messed up. Bad." Seals don't just walk away. He glances at the others, fear cutting through his bravado. What if he comes after us? Chainwrist spits, but the sound is hollow. He said he wasn't looking for trouble. Yeah, and you believe him? Buzzcut snaps. That guy's got training. He's got a past. If he wanted to, we'd be done already. The room falls quiet. For the first time, the predators feel like prey. Back in his kitchen, Darius pours black coffee and stares at the steam. His phone buzzes again, this time a call from an old teammate, Marcus, who never lost his sharp laugh. Brother, you made the news, Marcus chuckles when Darius answers. Didn't think you'd break silence with a grocery run. I didn't break anything, Darius replies, voice low. I didn't want this. You didn't choose it, but listen, people need to see what restraint looks like. You stood there, calm as a rock. That's louder than throwing punches. Darius pinches the bridge of his nose. I wanted a quiet life. Marcus pauses. Quiet's good, but sometimes the world drags your past back up because folks need the reminder. Maybe this time it's not about you. Maybe it's about them. That evening, the local news runs the clip. The anchor's voice is dramatic. An attempted assault downtown took an unexpected turn when the target revealed himself to be a former Navy SEAL. The suspects fled. Police are still searching for them. Reporters camp near the bodega, interviewing the clerk. He didn't raise his voice, the man says. Didn't move fast, just stood there, strong. They folded. The video plays again. Millions of eyes replay the moment Darius's sleeve lifts, the trident flashing like a warning bell. In his room, Darius closes the blinds against the glow of cameras outside. He sits on the edge of the bed, grocery bag from last night still crumpled in the corner. His hand rests on his forearm, fingers tracing the ink. The tattoo was never meant to be a threat. It was a memory, a brotherhood, a silent promise etched into skin. But tonight, the world made it a headline. And deep down, he knows this isn't the end of it. Once a story takes root, it grows, sometimes wildly, sometimes dangerously. He whispers to the quiet, the old mantra rising in his chest. The only easy day was yesterday. And he knows tomorrow will test that truth again. The video kept rolling through the city like a spark on dry brush. By Monday morning, every station had replayed it, every timeline had chewed it over, and hashtags carried his name alongside the word SEAL. People admired his calm, but admiration isn't the only thing that spreads fast. In a dim apartment 3 miles away, the gang sat restless. Buzzcut hadn't slept. He'd pulled the blinds tight, convinced someone was watching. His knee bounced against the carpet, cigarette smoke curling like anxious thought. Chainwrist kept muttering, Man, I didn't sign up for this. He traced the links of his chain, but his bravado was cracked. Batten Boy slapped the table. We didn't hurt him, we walked. That should be the end. But the smile that never reached his eyes snapped back, sharper than before. You think people forget? That clip's everywhere. We're the fools who tried to jump a Navy SEAL. Every street corner's laughing. Respect's gone. Buzzcut shook his head. Respect? Forget respect. I just don't want to wake up with that guy at my door. The room fell into uneasy silence. For predators used to owning fear, being trapped in it was suffocating. Meanwhile, Darius walked through the rec center's front doors, greeted by cheers from kids who had seen the clip too many times already. Phones flashed. Coach, flex the tattoo! One boy shouted. Darius raised a hand. Enough. It's not a trophy. It's not a threat. It's a memory. The gym grew quiet. He glanced around at their young faces, waiting for a lesson. You know what you saw in that video? Calm, he said. Not power, not violence. Calm. That's what kept anyone from getting hurt. But they were scared, a girl insisted. Yes, Darius admitted. But fear isn't respect. Don't ever confuse the two. You don't want people to respect you because they're afraid. You want them to respect you because you do right, even when it's hard. The room held its breath, absorbing the words. For the kids, the viral clip had been entertainment. But for Darius, it was something else entirely, a responsibility he hadn't chosen but couldn't shrug off. That same afternoon, 2 detectives knocked on his door. Their plain clothes and clipped tones carried the weight of official business. Mr. Cole, one said, flipping a badge. We've got questions about the incident Friday night. You aware your video's part of a police investigation? Darius nodded. I figured. You didn't report it. I didn't need to. They walked away. Nobody hurt. The detective exchanged a glance with his partner. Still, we're looking at 5 suspects. They've been tied to other assaults. That video gives us leverage, but we'll need your statement. Darius leaned against the doorframe, jaw tight. He didn't want headlines, didn't want to sit in a courtroom reliving the night, but he also knew silence could let predators circle again. I'll give you the truth, he said finally, but I'm not testifying for cameras. This isn't about me. The detective nodded. Fair enough, but the truth still matters. By evening, reporters camped on his street, a microphone thrust forward, voices overlapping. Mr. Cole, were you really a Navy SEAL? Do you feel you scared them off with your tattoo? What message do you have for the community? Darius said nothing. He pushed past them, locked the truck, and drove. The weight of attention pressed like surf against his ribs. Quiet had been his one prize after leaving the service. Now the world clawed at it. Back in the gang's apartment, fear had shifted to paranoia. Chain Wrist refused to leave. Buzzcut unplugged the TV, convinced it was a spy's eye. Baton Boy kept insisting, it's over, but his grip on the baton betrayed nerves. The smile that never reached his eyes paced like a caged animal. It's not over until we make it over. We can't live like this, jumping at shadows. If we don't move, he will. Buzzcut snapped, and what do you think we're supposed to do? He's trained. He's one man, the smile cut in. And we're 5. We just can't hesitate this time. But even as he said it, doubt flickered. The trident burned in his memory, the calm in Darius's eyes heavier than any weapon. That night, Darius sat at his kitchen table, journal open. Not a respect journal like the kids kept, but his own dog-eared notebook filled with quiet reflections. He wrote, I didn't fight, I didn't need to. But the world turned it into a story anyway. Calm turned into spectacle. I don't want to be their headline, I only want to be their teacher. He closed the notebook and looked at the tattoo on his arm, the trident still and silent. The only easy day was yesterday. Tomorrow, again, would test him. The week dragged like heavy boots across the pavement. For Darius, every errand felt like a stage. At the grocery store, strangers nodded with cautious respect. At the gas station, a young man asked for a photo. Darius refused, but the kid snapped anyway, posting it online with the caption, SEAL sighting. He hated it. Quiet was supposed to be his reward after years of service. But now quiet was gone, drowned beneath the hum of cameras and whispers. At the rec center, he tried to lose himself in the rhythm of training. Jab, reset, breathe, he told the kids, mitts snapping as they struck, but he saw it in their eyes. They weren't just throwing punches anymore. They were imagining the clip, the trident, the way 5 men backed down. Between rounds, one boy asked, Coach, if someone jumps me, should I just show them I'm not afraid? Darius froze, then dropped his mitts to his sides. No, he said firmly. Fear isn't a tool. Calm is. Respect is. You don't win by making people afraid. You win by walking away alive. The boy blinked, then nodded slowly. But Darius could feel the pull of the legend already. The clip had written its own script, one he couldn't erase. Across town, the gang's apartment boiled with paranoia. Curtains drawn, food wrappers piling, nerves raw. Buzzcut hadn't left in days, convinced every car on the street was tailing them. Chain Wrist muttered, People point when I walk outside. They know, they laugh. The smile that never reached his eyes slammed a fist into the wall. We can't hide forever. Hiding makes us weaker. If we don't act, we'll rot in here. Baton Boy bristled. Act? Against him? You saw what he was. You saw the ink. The smile sneered. Ink doesn't make a man. He's just flesh and blood like us. The only reason we lost that night was because we hesitated. Next time we don't. Buzzcut barked a bitter laugh. Next time? You crazy. The city's watching him now. Touch him and it's not just him you fight, it's everyone. But the smile's eyes burned with a dangerous mix of pride and fear. Better to die swinging than live a joke. The others exchanged uneasy glances. None agreed. None argued either. Fear had splintered them, but pride threatened to weld those shards into something reckless. That evening, 2 detectives returned to Darius's door. He let them in this time, the smell of coffee lingering in the kitchen. We've identified 4 of the suspects, one said. We need your cooperation to bring them in. They're already spooked. That video humiliated them. It might make them unpredictable. Darius leaned back in his chair. I didn't ask for this fight. We know, the detective said gently, but they might bring it to you whether you asked or not. If you testify, we can end it before it escalates. Darius's jaw tightened. He pictured the kids at the gym, the laughter of Naomi, the peace he fought so hard to build. He didn't want it shattered by a gang's bruised pride. "I'll tell the truth," he said finally. "But don't make me into your poster boy." The detectives exchanged a look, then nodded. "We'll do our best. But truth has a way of shining whether you want it to or not." That night, as he drove back from the rec center, headlights flared in his rearview mirror. Too close, too steady. A dark sedan shadowed him through 3 turns. Darius's fingers tightened on the wheel. His pulse didn't quicken. It slowed, settling into the calm that had carried him through darker nights overseas. At the next corner, he pulled into a well-lit gas station. The sedan kept rolling, then disappeared into the dark. Darius watched its taillights vanish, his jaw set. The message was clear. Eyes were on him. Back in his kitchen, he opened his notebook and wrote, "They think fear is respect. They think pride is strength. But fear eats itself. Pride rots. Calm is harder. It demands control when everything screams for violence. That's what they don't understand." He closed the notebook, glancing at the sleeve over his tattoo. The ink wasn't meant to frighten. It was a brotherhood, a reminder. But now it had become something else. A warning the world had seen, and a mark the gang couldn't forget. Across town in the cramped apartment, the smile that never reached his eyes leaned out the window, staring at the street. His voice was low but sharp. "He's not untouchable, ink or no ink. If we don't remind people who we are, we're finished." Chainwrist muttered, "Or maybe we're finished either way." Silence hung heavy. For the first time, none of them could tell which was worse, doing nothing or doing something they might never survive. By midweek, the city had absorbed the clip into its bloodstream. On one corner, men at the barbershop replayed it, debating whether the gang would ever show their faces again. At the bus stop, mothers whispered about the danger of young men with too much anger and too little guidance. And in classrooms, kids repeated the line that had stuck, "Go home." It was short, simple, and, coming from a man with calm eyes and a Navy SEAL trident, it sounded like scripture. But attention has a way of curdling. The more the city talked about Darius, the more the gang's pride unraveled. In their apartment, the tension boiled. Buzzcut sat with his head in his hands. "We're jokes, man. Everywhere I go, people whisper. They don't see us anymore. They just see that clip." Chainwrist slammed his chain against the wall. "We fix it. That's how respect comes back." "Fix it?" Buzzcut barked. "By what, running back at him? You didn't feel that stare? You didn't see how he didn't even flinch?" The smile that never reached his eyes paced like a man on fire. "Fear's a prison. I'm not living in it. If we don't move, we're done." Batten Boy muttered, "Maybe we're already done." The room went quiet. None of them wanted to say it out loud, but the truth sat heavy. Their power was gone, stripped by a single man's calm and a patch of ink. Meanwhile, Darius tried to return to rhythm. He kept his mornings simple: run at dawn, coach at the gym, groceries when needed. But whispers followed him. In the rec center parking lot, 2 reporters waited with microphones. He brushed past them, but one called, "Mr. Cole, do you feel like a hero?" He stopped, turned slowly. "No," he said. "I feel like a man who wanted peace and bought bread. Don't make it more than it is." The clip ran anyway, framed with bold letters. "Seal rejects hero label." That night, his phone buzzed again. Another message from Marcus, the old teammate. "You can't outrun it, brother, but you can shape it. Think about that." Darius closed the phone without answering. The police, too, leaned harder. The detectives returned, pressing. "We've got names, but without you on the record, prosecution's thin. You sure you won't testify in court?" "I'll speak the truth," Darius said, "but not for cameras." "You may not get that choice," one warned. Darius thought of the kids in his gym, their small fists punching air, their eyes bright with belief. He thought of the gang, humiliated, circling like sharks with wounded pride. The thought of those worlds colliding left a bitter taste. At the gang's apartment, fractures widened. Buzzcut paced the floor, voice rising. "I'm done. I'm out. You all can chase your pride into a grave if you want, but I'm not going back." Chainwrist sneered. "Coward." "No," Buzzcut shot back. "Smart. He didn't just scare us, he broke us. And I'd rather be alive than a ghost with a reputation." Batten Boy shifted uneasily. For once he didn't argue. The smile that never reached his eyes leaned in, his whisper colder than shouting. "You walk, you're no brother of mine. You live in fear forever. Buzzcut stared back, trembling but firm. Better fear than stupid. He shoved past them, slamming the door. The rest sat in silence. For the first time, their crew wasn't whole. That night, Darius drove Naomi, one of his gym students, home after practice. Her mother stood on the porch thanking him softly. As Darius walked back to his truck, his instincts prickled, the hair on his arms rising. He scanned the street. A sedan idled half a block away, headlights off. He paused, hand on the truck's door handle, gaze locked on the dark windshield. For a long moment, nothing moved. Then the engine revved, tires squealed, and the car vanished down the block. Darius stood in the quiet street, his jaw tight. He knew a shadow when he saw one. The gang wasn't done. Back home, he opened his notebook and wrote, "Quiet can be fragile. Calm can be mistaken for weakness. But calm is choice, and choice is power. They don't understand that yet. They think fear is respect. They're wrong. Respect is restraint." He closed the notebook, the trident on his arm burning like a live ember beneath the sleeve. The next morning broke gray and heavy, clouds pressing low over Norfolk. Darius laced his shoes and went for a run along the waterfront, but his thoughts chased him harder than his steps. The sedan from last night wasn't coincidence. It was shadow play, watching, testing, reminding him that the gang's pride hadn't dissolved. By the time he returned home, sweat cooling on his back, a patrol car sat at the corner. One of the detectives leaned out the window. "Morning, Cole. We're stepping up presence in your neighborhood." "I didn't ask for protection," Darius said, voice steady. The detective shrugged. "Doesn't matter. You rattled some cages. Now we have to keep the snakes from biting." Darius nodded once, then jogged up the steps. He didn't like being guarded, but he also knew predators struck when they thought you were alone. Across town, the gang's apartment reeked of tension. Buzzcut's departure left a hole no one could ignore. Chain Wrist tried to act harder, clinking his chain louder, but the silence afterward betrayed him. Baton Boy tapped his baton against the wall. "We can't keep hiding. Everyone knows. The whole city saw us fold. We can't walk into a store without people snickering." The smile that never reached his eyes leaned forward, voice low and sharp. "That's why we make a move. You think a SEAL's untouchable? Nobody's untouchable. We show the city we don't bow." Chain Wrist hesitated. "And if we fail, then we fail fighting," the smile snapped. "Better than living as a joke." But even as he spoke, doubt haunted their eyes. Pride pushed them forward, but fear held their ankles. At the rec center, Darius kept the kids focused. He lined them in rows, mitts snapping as punches landed. "Breathe, reset, control," he repeated. But in the corner of his eye, he noticed Naomi's mother lingering near the doors, worry etched into her face. When practice ended, she pulled him aside. "Mr. Cole, I don't like what I'm hearing. Folks say those boys are planning something. If you're in danger, that danger touches our children too." Darius's jaw tightened. "I won't let anything happen to them." "You can't promise that," she said firmly. "Be careful, please." Her words sat heavy, heavier than his own fear. It wasn't just his peace at risk anymore. It was theirs. That evening, Marcus called again. His voice carried that old rough humor, but underneath was steel. "You know they won't let this go, right?" Marcus said. "Humiliation eats men alive, especially cowards." "I'm not looking for a fight," Darius replied. "No SEAL ever was," Marcus said. "But you prepare anyway. You draw lines, and when they cross them, you make sure they regret it." Darius looked down at his forearm, the ink hidden under his sleeve. "The only easy day was yesterday," he murmured. Marcus chuckled darkly. "Exactly." At the gang's apartment, arguments flared again. Baton Boy slammed his baton onto the table. "Enough waiting. Tonight we move, find him, corner him, prove to everyone we don't run." Chain Wrist's voice cracked. "And if the cops are there? If he's ready?" The smile that never reached his eyes sneered. "Then we show them fear cuts both ways." But deep down, none of them truly believed it. The trident haunted them, an emblem not of ink, but of discipline they could never touch. That night, Darius walked out to his truck after practice. The street was quiet, too quiet. A breeze tugged at the leaves, carrying the smell of rain. He opened the driver's side door, then froze. Across the lot, a sedan idled, headlights off. He turned slowly, his body a calm coil. The window rolled down just enough for shadows to shift inside. Darius raised his voice, steady as stone. "Go home. The engine revved, tires squealing as the car peeled away into the night. He stood still long after the echo faded, the old calm wrapping around him like armor. This wasn't over. The gang was circling, pride pushing them toward a line they didn't understand. Back in his kitchen, he opened his notebook and wrote, "Fear makes them reckless. Pride makes them blind. But calm, that's the weapon they can't match. I didn't choose this fight, but if it comes, I'll finish it. Not for pride, for peace." He set down the pen, staring at the sleeve over his tattoo. The trident didn't just mark his past. It warned of what patience and discipline could do when forced to act. And Darius knew, sooner or later, that warning would be tested. Friday night returned with the same uneasy hum as the one that started it all. The waterfront bars were noisy, horns sounded across the bay, and Darius Cole parked his truck near the rec center after locking up. He checked the building twice, making sure the last kid had gone home safe. The lights clicked off one by one, leaving him alone in the parking lot with only the sodium lamps casting long, uneasy shadows. It was there that he heard it, a low rumble of an engine, too familiar now to ignore. A dark sedan crept along the far side of the lot, headlights off, slowing as it neared. Darius's breath didn't quicken, but his stance shifted. Calm flowed through him like muscle memory. The sedan stopped. Doors opened one by one. Figures spilled out. 4 this time, the same faces from that night. Baton Boy flicked his weapon open with a metallic snap. Chain Wrist swung his links like a snake coiled for strike. Buzzcut wasn't there. He'd walked. But the smile that never reached his eyes stood front and center, his voice colder now. "Evening, soldier," he sneered. "Thought you'd scare us off forever? Thought wrong." Darius set his grocery bag on the hood of the truck just as before. His voice was steady. "Walk away. You don't want this." The smile's laugh was jagged, brittle. "You don't tell us what we want. Tonight, you're the one going down." They spread out, trying to flank him. Years of training painted the map in his head. Angles, distances, light. He didn't move yet. He let them think they were dictating the field. Baton Boy lunged first, baton slicing through the air. Darius sidestepped, grabbed his wrist, and twisted just enough. The baton clattered to the ground, sliding across the asphalt. Darius didn't strike. He simply let the boy stumble back, clutching his wrist. "Last warning," Darius said quietly. "Go home." Chain Wrist snarled and swung the chain in a wide arc. Darius lifted his forearm, sleeve riding up just enough for the trident to catch the light. The chain stopped mid-swing. Chain Wrist froze, eyes locked on the ink like it was glowing. The smile cursed. "Don't freeze! He's just a man!" He rushed forward, knife flashing in his hand now. A cheap blade, the kind that snapped as often as it cut. Darius moved with the calm efficiency that had been drilled into him years ago. He sidestepped, caught the man's wrist, and pinned it against the truck hood in one fluid motion. The knife dropped. Darius pressed the man's arm down, not breaking it, but holding him with a strength that didn't shake. "You're still alive because I'm merciful," he said, voice low, close enough for only the gang to hear. "You think fear is respect. You're wrong. Fear is weakness. Respect is knowing when to stop." The man writhed, eyes wide, the old bravado leaking out like water through a crack. At that moment, blue lights flashed at the far end of the lot. A patrol car screeched in, tires biting asphalt. The detectives spilled out, guns drawn, voices cutting through the night. "Hands where we can see them! Everyone down!" Darius released the smile's wrist and stepped back, palms open. The gang scattered, Chain Wrist dropping his weapon, Baton Boy sprinting toward the alley. But the officers were faster this time, pinning 2 of them against the hood of their own car. The smile tried to run, but Darius caught his eye, calm and steady. The man froze, haunted by what he saw, before the detectives tackled him to the ground. Half an hour later, the lot was quiet again, police tape fluttering under the lamps. The detectives leaned against their car, one of them scribbling notes. "You kept it clean," he said, nodding at Darius. "Didn't strike, didn't escalate. That's discipline." "I didn't want this," Darius said simply. The detective sighed. "Doesn't matter what you want. The city just saw you hold off 4 men without a punch. That clip's already out there. Neighbors were filming again. You've become more than a witness. You're a symbol now." Darius rubbed his temple. The last thing he wanted was more headlines. But he also knew Marcus was right. Sometimes the world dragged your past into the light, whether you asked for it or not. The gang, now cuffed and loaded into cruisers, sat broken. Batten Boy's wrist ached, Chain Wrist stared at the ground, and the Smile's face was pale under the street lamp. None of them spoke. Their fear wasn't of the police anymore. It was of the man who hadn't needed fists or fury to dismantle them. Back home, Darius opened his notebook, hand steady as he wrote, "They struck tonight. I warned them, and still they came. I didn't fight. I didn't need to. Calm was enough. But calm is louder now, louder than I want. The city sees me as more than I am. I'm just a man buying groceries. But maybe that's the lesson. They don't need heroes. They need proof that calm wins." He set down the pen, leaned back, and stared at the sleeve covering his tattoo. The trident glowed only in his memory, but it had already carved itself into the city's story. By dawn, the parking lot confrontation was already all over the news. Footage taken from cell phones showed everything. 4 men circling, Darius standing still, the trident flashing under the lamp. Then the rush, the disarm, the calm pin, and finally the arrival of police. Anchors replayed it with slow-motion graphics, dissecting each movement like a sports highlight reel. At the rec center, kids swarmed Darius the next morning. "Coach, you were on the news again." "You didn't even hit them. You made them drop everything." Their voices rose like waves. Darius raised a hand, quieting the room. "Stop. Listen. What you saw isn't glory. It's control. I stayed calm so no one would get hurt. If you learn anything from me, it's this. Violence is easy. Control is hard. Respect comes from control." The kids nodded, but their eyes still glowed with awe. Darius knew he was fighting 2 battles now, against the gang outside and against the legend growing inside every child's imagination. In their cells, the captured gang members sat in silence. Batten Boy rubbed his injured wrist. Chain Wrist stared at the floor, eyes empty. The smile that never reached his eyes glared at the wall, fury masking fear. "You saw him," Batten Boy muttered. "He didn't even flinch." "Shut up," the smile snapped, but his voice cracked. He remembered the weight of Darius's grip, the way his knife had fallen uselessly. No one had ever made him feel that powerless before. Chain Wrist whispered, "It's over, we're finished." The smile turned on him, desperate. "We're not finished. He's not God. He's just a man." But the words rang hollow. The trident haunted them. The calm burned into their memories. Meanwhile, the streets buzzed with chatter. At the barbershop, one man said, "That seal doesn't need to fight. He wins with silence." Another replied, "He's proof you don't mess with discipline. Discipline beats chaos every time." But not everyone was convinced. In a smoky diner booth, 2 men muttered, "Making him a hero's dangerous. People start thinking he's bigger than the law." The city was split, half calling him a protector, half whispering he was becoming a vigilante by accident. The detectives returned to Darius's door that evening. One leaned against the porch railing. "The DA's thrilled. With your testimony, these 3 go away for years. But the word is, one's still out. Buzzcut, he's in the wind." Darius's jaw tightened. "He's the one with sense. He walked away." "Maybe, or maybe he's desperate," the detective said. "Either way, watch your back." Darius nodded but didn't answer. He'd lived too many years with his back watched for him. He trusted his own eyes more than any patrol car. That night, he met Marcus for coffee at a quiet diner on the edge of town. His old teammate's laugh was still sharp, but his eyes studied Darius carefully. "You're carrying it all again?" Marcus said. "Like you're back on deployment." "I didn't ask for it," Darius replied. "I just wanted groceries. Now the city's looking at me like I'm their shield." Marcus stirred his cup. "Maybe you are. You didn't choose it, but maybe it chose you. The gang, the kids, even the media. They're watching how you stand. Not how you fight, how you stand." Darius looked out the window, streetlights smearing in the glass. "I just want peace." Marcus shrugged. "Sometimes peace has to be earned twice. Once on the battlefield, once back home." Across the city, Buzzcut sat alone in a motel room, scrolling through endless clips of the video. His own face flashed across the screen, blurred but recognizable. Comments mocked him. "Look at this coward. Ran from a stare." He threw the phone against the wall, chest heaving. Shame burned hotter than fear. He wanted to disappear, but shame whispered louder, "Prove them wrong." In the silence, he realized something terrifying. He wasn't afraid of Darius anymore. He was afraid of living forever as a joke. And fear like that could turn a man reckless. Back home, Darius opened his notebook again. His handwriting was calm, deliberate. Tonight, the city debates who I am: hero, vigilante, protector. They don't understand I'm just a man trying to live quietly. But maybe Marcus is right. Maybe peace demands standing steady even when the world won't let you be small. The gang still circles. The last one left is the most dangerous, the desperate man. Desperation is louder than rage. He closed the notebook, slid it into the drawer, and turned off the lamp. The trident lay hidden under cotton, but the weight of it pressed heavier than any ink should. Sleep came late, shadowed by the thought that desperation was already moving somewhere in the dark. Buzzcut sat on the edge of a motel bed that smelled of smoke and bleach, his knee bouncing so hard the frame rattled. He hadn't slept in 2 nights. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the trident. Not just the tattoo, he saw the way the man carried it, the calm, the certainty. That was worse than fists. Fists he could fight. Calm? Calm turned him into a shadow of himself. The phone on the nightstand buzzed with messages. Old friends, distant relatives, all of them sending the same link, the video. Sometimes with laughing emojis, sometimes with silence. Either way, it was humiliation in digital form. He picked it up and hurled it against the wall. Plastic cracked, battery skittering across the floor. "I'm not a joke," he hissed. His voice sounded small, even to him. But desperation doesn't need an audience. It grows in the silence. And now it told him one thing. There was only one way to erase the stain. He had to prove he wasn't afraid. He had to strike where the calm man couldn't stand still. That same morning, Darius moved through his routine. Run at dawn, shower, coffee black, notebook open. He wrote quietly, "Fear mutates. It turns into anger, into shame, into desperation. And desperate men are unpredictable. They burn the house just to kill the rat. I feel him out there. The one who walked away. He's not done. Not yet." He closed the journal and slipped on his hoodie. The rec center needed him. Kids waiting with gloves and bright eyes. Whatever shadows lurked, life went on. The detectives stopped by mid-practice. Their presence alone set the kids whispering. One of them, Detective Marlowe, motioned Darius aside. "We've got a problem," Marlowe said quietly. "The last one? Buzzcut. He's off the radar. Quit his job, dumped his phone. Word on the street is he's looking to make a statement." Darius kept his expression even. "A statement?" "Something stupid," Marlowe said. "We're tightening patrols, but if he comes for you, it won't be with friends. It'll be desperate and ugly." Darius looked back at the kids, punching mitts, laughing between rounds. "I can't stop living because one man can't handle shame." "No," Marlowe agreed, "but you can be ready." Darius gave the barest nod. Ready had been his entire life. That night, rain slicked the streets. Darius locked up the rec center, pulling the heavy door shut. The sound of his boots on wet pavement echoed too loudly. He scanned instinctively, corners, alleys, the glow of street lamps. Halfway to his truck, he saw it. A figure leaning against the far wall, hood up, shoulders tight. The air between them stretched like wire. Buzzcut stepped forward, knife glinting faintly in his hand. His voice cracked but carried. "Not so calm now, huh? You ruined me. Whole city laughs at me." Darius didn't flinch. His tone was low, steady. "You ruined yourself. I gave you a chance to walk. You should have kept walking." Buzzcut's hand trembled, but the knife stayed raised. "I ain't afraid of you. Not anymore." Darius's eyes softened, not mocking but heavy with truth. "Yes, you are. That's why you're here. Fear dragged you out into the rain." Buzzcut shouted, lunging clumsily. Years of training snapped into Darius's body before thought could catch up. He sidestepped, grabbed the man's wrist, and twisted the knife free. In a heartbeat, the blade clattered onto the asphalt. Buzzcut collapsed to his knees, chest heaving, rain plastering his hood to his head. Darius held him there, not striking, not shouting, just pressing him down with calm control. "You came to prove something. All you proved is that fear owns you." Headlights flared. A patrol car screeched into the lot, officers jumping out. They saw the scene, the knife on the ground, Darius standing firm, Buzzcut broken at his feet. "Hands!" one shouted, though his voice carried respect, not suspicion. Darius raised his palms, stepping back. Buzzcut didn't move. The fight had drained out of him, leaving only the hollow shell of shame. Officers cuffed him, lifting him roughly to his feet. His eyes flicked to Darius one last time. There was no rage left, only the empty recognition of defeat. Later, at home, Darius sat with his notebook open again. Rain tapped the windows, steady and patient. He wrote, "He came tonight." Desperation led him. A blade in the dark, trembling hands. It could have ended in blood, but calm ended it instead. They'll call me hero again. They'll spin it into a story. But the truth is simpler. Discipline beats chaos. Always. Fear collapses under calm. He set the pen down, staring at the sleeve over his tattoo. The trident wasn't just a memory anymore. To the city, it had become a symbol, a warning, a promise. But to him, it was still the same, a reminder that the only easy day was yesterday, and tomorrow, calm would be tested again. By Monday morning, the rain-soaked confrontation was on every screen. The grainy cell phone footage replayed endlessly. A hooded man lunging, a flash of steel, then the knife clattering away as Darius held him down with quiet efficiency until police arrived. Anchors spoke in hushed tones, as if narrating myth. "Former Navy SEALs save city again," one headline read. Another declared, "Calm crushes chaos." Darius watched none of it. He sat in his kitchen with black coffee, the notebook open, pen resting idle. The quiet of the house felt thinner than before, stretched taut by the weight of a city's gaze. When he finally stepped outside, neighbors greeted him differently, not just nods now, handshakes, thanks, even tears. One older woman clutched his arm, whispering, "You made us feel safe again." He offered only a small nod, because he didn't feel safe himself. Safety was never absolute. It was always temporary, always earned and re-earned. At the rec center, the kids swarmed him louder than ever. Phones waved, voices rose. "Coach, you're trending again. They say you're like Batman. You didn't even throw a punch." Darius raised a hand, silencing the room. His voice carried firm authority. "Stop. You need to understand something. What you saw wasn't a fight. It was control. That man could have died. I chose not to let that happen. Calm isn't flashy. Calm isn't fun. But calm keeps you alive." The gym went quiet. For a moment, the awe in their eyes shifted into something steadier. Respect, not excitement. That was enough for him. Meanwhile, at the precinct, the detectives debriefed. Buzzcut was in custody, his statement a mess of shame and broken pride. "He admitted it," Detective Marlowe said. "Said he went after Cole because he felt humiliated. Wanted to prove he wasn't afraid. Ended up proving the opposite." His partner shook his head. "Cole dismantled 5 men without a single strike. Imagine if he'd wanted to hurt them." Marlowe frowned. "That's the point. He didn't, and that's what terrifies them most." Across town, in bars and shops, the story morphed into legend. Men retold it with flourishes, the knife gleaming like lightning, the gang frozen under the weight of a stare. Women whispered that the city finally had someone who embodied discipline, not just force. Even the kids in schools scrawled tridents in their notebooks, doodling their own versions of the tattoo that had come to symbolize calm power. But admiration carried danger. The louder the myth grew, the more it pulled Darius into a role he hadn't chosen. Hero, protector, symbol. One evening, Marcus showed up at his door unannounced. The old teammate carried 2 beers and the same half grin that had once broken tension before missions. "You're famous again," Marcus said, dropping onto the couch. "Whole city chanting your name." "I don't want them to," Darius replied flatly. Marcus chuckled. "Doesn't matter what you want. Doesn't matter what I want. You stood tall, you stayed calm, and people saw it. Now you're not just Darius. You're proof, and proof doesn't belong to itself." Darius sipped his beer, staring at the floor. Proof of what? That calm beats chaos. That discipline beats pride. That a man can stand without striking. People are starving for that, brother. And you gave it to them. Darius shook his head. "I didn't give it, they took it." Marcus leaned forward, voice low. "Maybe that's the way it works. You live your truth and the world makes it bigger, whether you like it or not." Meanwhile, in the county jail, the gang sat broken. Chain Wrist refused to speak. Baton Boy muttered to himself, rocking back and forth. The smile that never reached his eyes stared at the ceiling, fury burned to ash. Buzzcut kept repeating the same words. "He didn't even flinch. He didn't even flinch." Guards grew tired of hearing it. Inmates whispered about it. Their fear had crossed into the mythology of the jail itself. That night, Darius opened his notebook again. His pen moved slowly, deliberately. "They've made me into something I'm not. A hero. A symbol. a protector. I'm just a man who wanted peace, but peace doesn't sell. Stories do. And now the story is mine, whether I wanted it or not. He paused, then underlined one sentence. Calm is not weakness. Calm is strength. Closing the notebook, he leaned back, the trident pressing faintly under his sleeve. It no longer felt like just a memory of his service. It had become a language others read for themselves, whether he liked it or not. Across the city, murals began appearing overnight, spray-painted tridents on brick walls, stenciled words beneath them, "Go home." To some, they were warnings. To others, they were hope. And as Darius walked the streets the next morning, he saw them with his own eyes. His symbol was no longer his alone. The murals spread faster than Darius could count them. On underpasses, on the side of convenience stores, even sketched into chalk on playground pavement, the same image appeared. A trident and the words, "Go home." Some kids traced it like a badge of honor. Some adults frowned, muttering that the city didn't need vigilante slogans. But whether embraced or criticized, the symbol had already taken on a life of its own. Darius walked past one of the murals one morning, gym bag slung over his shoulder. A boy no older than 10 was sketching the trident onto a notebook. He looked up, eyes wide. "You're him," the boy whispered. Darius crouched down so they were eye level. "No, son, I'm just a man who kept his calm, that's all." The boy frowned. "But they ran. Everybody says they ran because of you." "They ran because of what they saw in themselves," Darius corrected gently. "Not because of me." The boy nodded slowly, though it was clear he didn't fully understand. But he would. Someday. At the rec center, the kids were restless. More phones than gloves appeared, everyone eager to record their coach the hero. Darius shut it down with a single clap. "This isn't about videos," he said, voice sharp. "It's about discipline. If you're here to film, leave. If you're here to learn, gloves on." The chatter quieted, but the glow of awe lingered in their eyes. He could see the danger, legend, breeding in young minds, confusing calm control with a kind of celebrity. And celebrity was the last thing he wanted. Meanwhile, reporters grew more aggressive. One cornered him outside the rec center, camera lights blazing. "Mr. Cole, how does it feel to be the city's new protector?" "I'm not a protector," Darius said firmly. "I'm a man who minds his own business." "But you've stopped 2 gang confrontations without violence. Don't you think people see you as more than that?" Darius shook his head. "People see what they want, but I won't play their game." He pushed past, leaving the microphone bobbing in the air. That clip aired anyway, framed as the humble hero who denies his role. Marcus called that night. His voice carried both humor and warning. "They're turning you into a folktale, brother. You've got murals, chants, and hashtags. If you're not careful, you'll be the city's mascot by next week." "I never asked for this," Darius muttered. "Didn't matter when we were deployed either," Marcus reminded him. "Sometimes the mission picked us, not the other way around." Darius stared at the notebook on his desk. This isn't a mission. It's a city twisting calm into myth. Marcus's voice softened. "Then keep reminding them of the truth. Be the man who doesn't swing first, who teaches kids restraint. That's how you stay human in the middle of the noise." Across town, the gang's remaining members sat in county jail, their pride stripped bare. Baton Boy barely spoke. Chain Wrist muttered prayers under his breath. The smile that never reached his eyes stared at the ceiling, still clinging to hatred. "You think he's finished?" he hissed one night. "You think calm lasts forever? Men like him crack, and when he does, we'll laugh from in here." But even his voice lacked conviction. The fear in their bones was permanent, carved deeper than any sentence could reach. The city council held a meeting that week, packed with citizens. Some demanded more police funding, pointing to the gang as proof. Others praised Darius, urging the city to recognize him formally. One councilman said, "This man stood alone and did what fear and pride couldn't. He deserves our thanks." But a woman in the back shouted, "Don't turn him into a weapon. He's a man, not a shield." The chamber erupted in arguments, and through it all, Darius stayed home, watching from the quiet of his couch, notebook in hand. That night he wrote, "Symbols weigh more than flesh. The city paints me on walls, chants my words, calls me protector. But I'm not. I'm just a man buying bread, keeping calm when others won't." Still, maybe Marcus is right. Maybe this is the mission I didn't choose. To remind them calm is possible. To show them respect is louder than fists. He underlined one line. Calm is not weakness. Calm is strength. Closing the notebook, he leaned back, eyes on the ceiling. Outside, faint chants of "go home" carried from some distant block. His name wasn't spoken, but he knew they meant him. And with that knowledge came the weight of something heavier than fists, heavier than knives: responsibility. By the second week, the Trident murals weren't just chalk on sidewalks or paint on brick walls. They appeared on posters in coffee shop windows, on t-shirts printed overnight by opportunistic vendors, even as graffiti on a city bus. To some, it was hope, discipline embodied. To others, it was proof the city had crowned a vigilante. News panels argued on split screens. One anchor praised him. "He's shown us calm beats chaos." Another warned, "No man should be above the law, even if he wears a sealed trident." Darius avoided the broadcasts, but the noise reached him anyway. At the rec center, parents debated in hushed tones as they picked up their kids. Some thanked him with tearful eyes. Others kept their distance, afraid his shadow brought danger. He felt the split in every handshake, every glance. Half the city leaned toward him, the other half leaned away. And he stood in the middle, anchored by the calm that had carried him through darker places than this. Marcus called again, voice gruff but steady. "You're not just a man anymore, brother. You're a mirror. Half the city sees discipline. Half sees a threat." "I didn't ask for that reflection," Darius said. "Doesn't matter. Mirrors don't choose who looks into them. They just show the truth." Darius rubbed his temple. "The truth is, I want peace. I want these kids safe. I don't want murals. I don't want chants." Marcus's tone softened. "Maybe you don't want them, but maybe they need them. And maybe your job now is to make sure the story doesn't twist into something it isn't." Meanwhile, in jail, the gang simmered. Baton Boy and Chain Wrist sank deeper into silence, but the smile that never reached his eyes still clung to his bitterness. "They worship him now," he hissed during a meal, plastic fork snapping in his grip. "Like he's untouchable. But nobody's untouchable. Not forever." Chain Wrist muttered, "Forget him. We're done." The smile leaned close, voice venom. "He's not finished. Neither are we." But even as he spoke, fear gnawed at his tone. His bravado had cracked the night Darius pinned him, and no words could hide it. At the city council chambers, the debate boiled hotter. Citizens packed the seats, arguing until voices blurred. One woman shouted, "He's the reason my children walk home safe." A man countered, "No, he's making gangs worse. They'll fight harder just to prove they're not weak." Council members tried to maintain order, but the room was split down the center, half standing for Darius, half against. That night, news cameras captured chants outside City Hall. On one side, "Respect, calm, go home." On the other, "No vigilantes, no myths." The divide was now visible, loud and dangerous. Darius sat at home with his notebook open, TV muted in the background. He wrote slowly, "The city argues about who I am. Hero, threat, protector, vigilante. None of them are right. I'm just a man who stayed calm. But maybe Marcus is right. Maybe I'm a mirror. They see what they want. I can't control that. All I can control is myself." He paused, tapping the pen. But control is harder when the noise never stops, when the weight of a symbol presses heavier than flesh. He closed the book, but the words lingered like a drumbeat. The next day at the rec center, the kids sensed the tension. Naomi tugged at his sleeve after practice. "Coach, why are people fighting about you?" Darius crouched down, meeting her eyes. "Because people see different things in the same truth. Some see calm, some see threat. But what matters is what you do with your own choices, not what they argue about me." She nodded, though confusion lingered, but her small smile reminded him why he kept showing up. That evening, as Darius left the gym, a small group of supporters waited by his truck. They wore shirts with the trident stenciled across the chest, chanting, "Go home! Go home!" Darius raised a hand. "Stop! I don't want chants. Go home, for real. Respect doesn't live in shouting. It lives in how you act when nobody's watching." Some looked embarrassed. Others nodded, dispersing slowly. But one man lingered, eyes burning with fervor. "We believe in you. Don't deny who you are." Darius shook his head. "Believe in discipline, not in me." The man frowned but left. Darius knew then, symbols, once born, didn't die easily. That night, back in his kitchen, he sat with his beer untouched, staring at the trident under his sleeve. It wasn't just his anymore. The city had taken it, painted it, shouted it, and no matter how he tried, he couldn't take it back. He opened his notebook one more time. Respect isn't murals. It isn't chance. It isn't crowds. Respect is calm under pressure. If I let them turn me into noise, I lose the truth. I won't let that happen. The city can split, argue, fight, but I will stand calm. That's all I can do. He closed the book, exhaled, and let the quiet fill the room. Outside, faint chants still echoed from distant streets, but inside, the calm remained his. By the third week, the city felt like it was breathing in short, sharp bursts. Every block carried the hum of tension. Every conversation drifted back to the same name, Darius Cole. In the coffee shops, people debated like it was sport. He's a guardian, some said. He's a vigilante, others shot back. On radio shows, callers yelled over each other about what his presence meant. Even at schools, children drew tridents on notebook covers while teachers nervously erased them from chalkboards. The noise pressed harder on Darius than fists ever had. He could fight men, he couldn't fight stories. At the rec center, the pressure seeped in. Kids whispered about the gangs, repeating rumors overheard from older siblings. "They say more crews are watching you," one boy muttered. "They want to prove they're not scared either." Darius set the mitts down, his voice steady but sharp. "Listen to me. Don't repeat rumors. Don't feed fear. Discipline isn't about chasing stories. It's about controlling yourself, every single day." The gym fell quiet, but the looks in their eyes told him the legend was already shaping them. He worried it was giving them the wrong lesson. That night, Marcus visited again. He leaned against the kitchen counter, arms crossed, watching Darius scribble into his notebook. "You're wound tight, brother," Marcus said. "Tighter than I've seen since deployment." Darius didn't look up. "Noise doesn't stop. Everyone's pulling me into something I never asked for. They want a hero, or they want a villain. No one wants the truth." Marcus sipped his coffee. "Truth's harder to sell than stories, you know that. But listen, if gangs really are watching, you can't just hope calm saves the day. Calm without preparation is just hope dressed up." Darius finally looked at him. "So what? You want me to fight them?" "No," Marcus said firmly. "I want you ready. Calm is strength, but strength still needs a spine." Meanwhile, in the county jail, the gang stewed. The smile that never reached his eyes kept muttering about revenge, stoking the other's anger. "He humiliated us. The city chants his words while we rot. Somebody out there's gotta set the record straight." Batten Boy finally snapped. "Forget him. He's done with us. We're in here for years." But the smile leaned close, whispering with poison in his tone. "Not all of us. Other crews are out there. They've seen what happened. They're itching to prove they're harder. If they take him down, they take the legend down with him." Chain Wrist muttered, "They'll get crushed." The smile's grin was hollow. "Maybe, but maybe he bleeds this time. And that's all they need." The detectives felt it too. Marlowe sat across from Darius in the precinct, papers spread across the desk. "Word is, smaller gangs are talking. You embarrassed one group. That kind of humiliation spreads like infection. Now others want a cure." Darius crossed his arms, calm as ever. "That's not my fight." Marlowe leaned forward. "It is if they make it yours. You can't ignore what's coming. We'll put more patrols near the rec center, but I won't lie. You're the target now, not the kids. You." Darius exhaled slowly, letting the weight settle. "Then let them come. I'll stay calm." Marlowe studied him. "Calm's powerful, but don't mistake calm for invincibility." By Friday, the city boiled hotter. Supporters marched with trident signs, chanting "Go home" across downtown. Counter-protesters shouted back, "No vigilantes." The two groups nearly collided in front of City Hall until police waded in, holding the lines apart. From his porch, Darius watched the footage on his muted TV. His notebook lay open on his lap. He wrote, "Calm isn't spreading. Noise is. My words are twisted into chants. My silence into slogans. They don't understand. Respect isn't painted on walls or shouted in streets. It's practiced in quiet when nobody's watching. But the city wants noise, and noise draws fire." He set the pen down, rubbing his temples. For the first time since this began, he wondered if his calm could truly hold against the storm. That night, as he locked the rec center doors, he sensed it again. The shift in the air, the subtle silence before trouble. Across the street, two cars idled, engines low. Figures leaned against the hoods, watching. Not the same gang, but younger faces, hungry for something to prove. Naomi's mother called from the sidewalk, waving to her daughter inside. Darius's stomach tightened. The kids, they were the lever. If these crews couldn't break him directly, they'd break him through what he cared for. He walked Naomi safely to her mother, eyes never leaving the cars. His voice was calm but steel. "Drive straight home. Don't stop." They nodded, fear flickering in their eyes as they left quickly. The cars stayed parked, engines humming, waiting, testing. Darius stood in the lot alone, the trident burning beneath his sleeve like a brand. He didn't move toward them. He didn't posture. He simply stood, steady as stone, until the cars peeled away into the night. But he knew this wasn't over. The storm wasn't just circling anymore. It was closing in. The weekend settled over Norfolk like a storm cloud that refused to move. Streets buzzed with rumors, new gangs watching, plotting, daring themselves to do what the others could not. For every mural painted of the trident, there was another voice calling Darius a menace, a vigilante wrapped in discipline. The city wasn't just divided anymore, it was combustible. Darius felt it everywhere he went. At the grocery store, whispers followed him down the aisles. At the rec center, the kids' parents eyed the doors nervously, as if trouble would march through at any second. Even the detectives admitted the pressure was mounting. "They're circling," Detective Marlowe said, leaning against the hood of his cruiser outside the rec center. "Not just one crew now, two, maybe three, each one trying to decide if they can make a name by taking you down." Darius folded his arms. "They'll fail, but they'll make noise doing it." Marlowe sighed. "Noise means danger, and danger means collateral. You may be fine, but what about the kids? What about the families watching?" The truth stung. Darius's calm had carried him through ambushes and firefights, but this was different. Here, the battlefield wasn't sand or sea. It was his own city, filled with innocence. That night, Marcus dropped by again, tossing his keys onto the table. His face was serious, stripped of humor. "You can't keep standing still, brother," he said. "The sharks smell blood. They're gonna keep circling until one of them's dumb enough to bite." Darius leaned back, hands clasped. "And when they bite, I'll be ready." Marcus shook his head. "It's not just about you, it's about what happens around you. You think calm protects everyone, but calm doesn't stop bullets if some kid gets caught in the crossfire." The words landed heavy. Darius knew he was right. Calm was power, but calm wasn't armor for the entire city. Across town, in a crumbling warehouse, two gangs huddled together. Young men, faces lit by the glow of cheap liquor and angrier thoughts. "He made the others look weak," one spat. "Now everyone thinks we're scared too." Another slammed a bottle against the floor. "You saw the videos. He doesn't even swing. He just stares and they fold. We can't fold." A third leaned forward, whispering like a dare. "Then we don't. We hit him hard. We hit him fast. And we hit him where it hurts." Their voices rose in agreement, pride feeding off desperation. They didn't just want to take Darius down, they wanted to burn the myth itself. Meanwhile, at the rec center, Naomi lingered after practice. Her eyes were wide, worried. "Coach," she said softly, "why are people angry with you? You didn't do anything wrong?" Darius crouched down, meeting her gaze. "Sometimes people don't like the truth, Naomi. Calm makes them see what they fear in themselves, and when people fear, they get angry." She nodded slowly, though her small face was still clouded with confusion. "But you'll keep us safe, right?" The weight of her trust pressed on him harder than any threat. "Always," he promised. That evening, the storm cracked. As Darius locked up the rec center, headlights flared at both ends of the block. Two cars slid into place, engines growling low. Doors opened, young men spilling out, their swagger brittle with nerves. Chains, bats, and a couple of guns glinted in the lamplight. Marcus, who had stayed late to help clean up, stepped outside just behind Darius. His hand froze on the doorframe, eyes narrowing. "Guess the sharks decided to bite." The leader sneered across the lot. "You think you're untouchable, old man? You're just ink and stories. Tonight we prove it." Darius stepped forward, calm as stone, his voice carrying across the night. "You're not proving anything. You're just gambling your lives for pride." The leader barked a laugh, though his voice shook. "Then let's gamble." The circle began to close. Marcus tensed beside him, fists clenched. But Darius lifted a hand, signaling restraint. His eyes swept the group, measuring angles, exits, distances. "You still have a choice," Darius said evenly. "Go home. Walk away. Nobody needs to bleed tonight." For a moment, the young men hesitated. The weight of his calm pressed on them, heavy and unshakable. Some shifted uneasily, gripping weapons they didn't truly want to use, but pride roared louder than wisdom. One raised his bat, shouting, "We ain't scared!" Marcus muttered under his breath, "This is about to break bad." Darius exhaled slowly, centering himself. He'd faced ambushes in darker places than this. He knew what it took to survive, but this wasn't about survival. It was about stopping chaos before it swallowed his city whole. Back home later, safe for the moment, Darius wrote in his notebook, "The storm came tonight. Young men with too much pride, too little discipline. I gave them a chance to walk. Some wanted to, but pride roared louder. Calm held the line. But this city is on fire now, and I'm standing in the middle whether I want to or not." He set down the pen, staring at the ink on his forearm beneath the sleeve. The trident glowed in his memory, not as a weapon, but as a promise, to stand when others faltered. And he knew, the next time, walking away might not be enough. The circle of young men closed tighter around the rec center lot. Rainwater pooled in the cracks of the asphalt, reflecting the glow of sodium lights. Weapons caught the shine, chains, bats, a pistol gripped by one who thought it made him fearless. But fear was already written across their eyes, trembling beneath the surface. Marcus muttered low, almost to himself, "Too many, too wired." Darius lifted a hand, signaling him to hold. Calm was the weapon now. Panic would only spill blood. "Listen," Darius said, his voice carrying steady over the hum of idling engines. "You came here for pride, but pride will bury you faster than bullets. You can still go home." The leader barked a laugh, brittle and sharp. "We ain't scared of ink, old man." He pointed at Darius's arm, as though naming the trident out loud would break its spell. "That tattoo don't mean nothing," but the others didn't echo him. They shifted, unease breaking their formation. Even with numbers, even with weapons, the calm in Darius's stance pressed against them like a wall. Then the mistake came. A nervous hand gripped the pistol too tight, finger twitching on the trigger. The shot cracked the night, wild and high, shattering a streetlight above. Glass rained down. The kids inside the rec center screamed. Marcus cursed, ducking instinctively. Darius didn't move. His calm grew colder, harder, the way it had in war zones when chaos exploded without warning. He took one step forward, eyes locked on the gunman. "Put it down," he commanded, his tone heavy as iron. The young man froze. His hands shook violently now, the pistol slipping in his sweat-slick grip. I didn't mean—" "Put it down," Darius repeated, each word landing like a hammer. The boy's chest heaved. Then, slowly, he lowered the weapon, letting it clatter onto the wet asphalt. The gang's leader tried to bark over the silence. "Pick it up! Don't fold!" But the words rang hollow. The shot had broken more than the light. It had broken their courage. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder with every heartbeat. Blue and red lights splashed against the walls as patrol cars tore into the block, tires screeching. Officers spilled out, weapons drawn. "Down! Everyone down!" The young men scattered like startled animals. Some dropped chains and bats, raising hands high. Others sprinted toward the alleys, but officers were faster, tackling them into the puddles. The leader was pinned against a cruiser, still shouting empty threats no one believed. Through it all, Darius stood motionless, calm as stone. Marcus glanced at him, shaking his head. "You didn't even blink." "Blinking doesn't stop bullets," Darius said quietly. Detective Marlowe pushed through the chaos, his coat plastered by rain. "You all right?" he asked, eyes scanning the scene. Darius nodded once. "The kids?" "They're safe. Officers got them out the back." Marlowe sighed heavily, rubbing his temple. "This city's boiling over. You know what they're calling you now?" Darius raised a brow. "The Calm." Darius's jaw tightened. Another title he hadn't asked for. Another layer of myth thickening around him. By dawn, the headlines screamed, "The Calm faces down armed gang." Clips replayed the moment the pistol hit the ground, slowed and captioned like scripture. Supporters hailed it as proof of discipline's power. Critics warned it showed one man held more sway than the police themselves. At the rec center, parents flooded in, some hugging Darius with tearful thanks, others demanding he close the doors before another storm broke. The kids stared at him with wide eyes, whispering his new name like it was magic. Darius silenced them with a raised hand. Respect isn't about fear. Calm isn't about being untouchable. It's about control. Remember that. Don't turn it into something it isn't. But he could see the truth. Legends don't obey lectures. That night, Marcus sat across from him at the kitchen table, the weight of silence between them. "You can't stop it now," Marcus said finally. "They've made you into something bigger than you are." "I don't want to be bigger," Darius muttered. "I want peace." "Then maybe the only way to get peace," Marcus said, "is to show them what calm really means. Not murals, not chants, the truth. Discipline, even when the whole world screams for violence." Darius looked down at his notebook, then at the trident hidden under his sleeve. He wrote one line. "Calm is not silence. Calm is choice." He underlined it twice, feeling the truth burn into the page. Across the city, the gangs were fractured, their pride shattered by sirens and cell phone cameras. But the legend of Darius Cole, the calm, was only growing. And Darius knew the storm wasn't ending, it was only shifting. The fight ahead wouldn't be fists or knives, it would be for the soul of the story itself. The morning after the gunshot incident, Norfolk awoke to a city caught between fear and fascination. Every local paper carried the same photo. Darius standing still in the rain, trident faintly visible beneath his sleeve, a pistol lying at his feet. The caption varied. Some called him a hero, others a dangerous symbol. But the image was everywhere. At the diner, patrons whispered over steaming mugs. He didn't even flinch. At the barbershop, one man insisted, "That's the kind of discipline our kids need." But another argued, "No one man should hold that kind of power, he's not the law." The split was sharper now. The calm had become more than a nickname. It was a dividing line across the city. At the rec center, the kids buzzed louder than ever. Naomi tugged his sleeve, eyes wide. "Coach, they said you stopped a bullet." Darius crouched, his tone steady. "No, Naomi, I didn't stop a bullet. I stopped a man from making a mistake." "But they say a lot of things," he cut in gently. "What matters is the truth. And the truth is this: control saved everyone. Not strength, not fear, control." The gym hushed as the lesson sank in, but Darius saw the way they still looked at him, with awe, not understanding. That evening, Detective Marlowe showed up at his porch, rain dripping from his coat. "The council's calling an emergency session," he said grimly. "Half want to honor you, half want to rein you in. You're at the center of this storm whether you like it or not." "I don't want either," Darius replied. "I want peace." Marlowe shook his head. "Peace doesn't trend. Chaos does. And right now, you're the story they're all selling." He left Darius in the quiet, but the words stayed like a shadow. Across town, the gangs licked their wounds. In a smoke-filled basement, a new voice rose, a younger leader, face sharp with hunger. "They call him the calm," he sneered. "Then let's break the calm. Show the city he bleeds. Show them the trident's just ink." The room buzzed with nervous agreement. Pride was a drug, and humiliation demanded a fix. Plans began to form, reckless and dangerous. Back at home, Marcus dropped by with 2 beers, setting one on the table. "Your face is on murals now," he said, half amused, half worried. "Kids are wearing shirts with your nickname on it." "I'm not a brand," Darius muttered. "No," Marcus agreed. "But stories don't care what you want. They grow whether you water them or not. The question is, do you let the weeds take over, or do you guide it into something useful?" Darius rubbed his temples. "I can't guide a city." "You already are," Marcus said firmly. "Every time you stand calm, you're teaching them. You're just not choosing the lesson yet." The words struck deeper than he wanted to admit. Later that night, Darius sat at his kitchen table with his notebook open. He wrote, "The city split today. Half call me savior. Half call me danger. Both are wrong. I am neither. I am a man choosing calm. But Marcus is right. Stories grow wild. If I don't shape it, others will. The gangs will twist it into fear, the media into spectacle, the kids into legend. The truth will be lost." He underlined one line. Calm must be taught, not worshipped. The next morning, he arrived at the rec center to find the wall outside painted overnight. A massive trident stretched across the brick, the words beneath in bold white, "The calm protects us." Parents crowded around, some taking photos proudly, others shaking their heads in disapproval. One mother approached him directly. "You need to speak to the council. End this before it tears the city apart." Another countered, "Don't you dare. We need him. He's the only one keeping our streets safe." Their voices clashed, echoing through the lot. Darius stood in the middle, silent, the weight pressing heavier than any weapon he had carried in war. That night, alone in his house, he stared at the sleeve covering his tattoo. The trident was no longer his, it belonged to the city now. They had made it into a shield, a slogan, a myth. But he knew myths could be dangerous. They could inspire hope or ignite chaos. And as thunder rolled outside, Darius whispered to himself, "The only easy day was yesterday." He felt the truth of it more than ever. Norfolk felt ready to snap. By midweek, the city was a pressure cooker. Protests in front of City Hall, graffiti wars on opposite ends of the same street, and news vans parked outside the rec center like vultures waiting for fresh scraps. Supporters marched with trident flags chanting, "Respect, calm, go home." Counter-protesters shouted back, "No vigilantes, no myths." Police strained to hold the lines apart. On one night, bottles flew and the chaos spilled into scuffles that made headlines of their own. Darius watched it all from his porch, the glow of the television flickering against his face. The footage wasn't about gangs anymore. It was about him, the calm. A man who had only wanted groceries and quiet now carried the weight of a divided city. He closed his eyes, hearing the echoes of chants even after the screen went black. At the rec center, the strain showed in the kids. Some came with trident symbols drawn on their hands in marker, proudly holding them up like shields. Others whispered about rumors of another gang move, fear flickering in their voices. During practice, Naomi asked quietly, "Coach, are you gonna fight again?" Darius knelt, lowering the mitts. "I don't fight, Naomi. I stand calm. There's a difference." "But everyone says you're our protector," she pressed. Darius's chest tightened. He could see her small hands trembling, caught between fear and belief. "I'll keep you safe," he said gently, "but not by fighting. By staying calm, even when others lose control. That's real strength." Still, he knew his words were swimming against a current stronger than any one man's lesson. The detectives cornered him again that evening. Marlowe's voice was grim. "You're a lightning rod, Cole. Every gang wants to test you now. We intercepted chatter. 2 crews planning to storm the rec center, not to hurt kids, but to draw you out. They want to break the myth." Darius folded his arms. "Then stop them before they get close." Marlowe shook his head. "We'll try. But if they come, it'll be fast, messy, and in public. If you're there, it'll be on every screen in the country." Darius stared past him at the dark street. "So either I stand calm and feed the myth, or I fight and destroy it." "Exactly," Marlowe said. "And either way, the city burns." Later, Marcus found him sitting on the porch, notebook on his lap, pen idle. "You look like you're carrying the whole ocean," Marcus said, easing into the chair beside him. "I am," Darius murmured. "This city's tearing itself apart and I'm the fault line." Marcus studied him. "So what are you gonna do? Stay silent while they twist your story, or stand up and tell it yourself?" Darius shook his head. "If I speak, I become the symbol even more." "Maybe," Marcus said, "but silence lets them write it for you, and they're writing it wrong." The words landed heavy. That night, Darius opened his notebook and wrote, "I've avoided the role. Denied it." But Marcus is right. Silence feeds chaos. Maybe the truth isn't to reject the story, but to claim it. To remind them calm is not legend, it's discipline. Not worship, but practice. If I don't, gangs will twist it into fear, and children will twist it into fantasy. The city will drown in noise, and I will have failed the very peace I sought. He stared at the words for a long time, then underlined one sentence: "Calm must be claimed before it's lost." The next morning, he walked into the rec center earlier than usual. Reporters clustered outside, cameras flashing, microphones thrust forward. "Mr. Cole, are you the city's protector? Do you accept being called the calm?" He raised a hand, silencing the frenzy with the same steady tone he used in the gym. "I'm not a hero," he said. "I'm not a vigilante. I'm a man who chooses calm when others choose chaos. That's all. Don't turn it into myth. Make it a practice. Teach your children, live it yourselves. Calm is respect. Respect is peace. That's the truth." The cameras drank it in, the words already spreading faster than he could stop them. But as he stepped inside the gym, Naomi ran up to him, smiling brighter than she had in days. "Coach," she said softly, "you sound like my dad when he prays." And for the first time in weeks, Darius felt a small flicker of peace. That night, though, as he closed his notebook, the trident burned against his skin beneath the sleeve. The storm hadn't ended. Speaking truth had only sharpened the lines. The city wasn't calmer yet. It was more awake, more divided, more dangerous. But now, Darius knew he could no longer hide. The only easy day was yesterday. Tomorrow, the story would test him again. Darius's words spread through Norfolk like wildfire. Clips of him standing on the rec center steps, speaking calmly into a forest of microphones, looped endlessly across television and social media. Supporters latched onto every phrase, repeating them like scripture. Calm is respect, respect is peace. But so did his enemies. In back rooms and basements, gangs seethed. To them, every cheer for Darius was another nail in the coffin of their reputation. "He thinks he owns this city," one young leader spat, pacing before his crew. "They worship him like he's untouchable. If we don't cut him down, we're finished." Another slammed his fist on the table. "Then we strike big. Not just him, his place, his people. Make the city see he can't protect everyone." The room buzzed with agreement. Their pride demanded blood. That same evening, Darius felt the storm in the air before it arrived. As he closed the rec center, he noticed a new energy in the streets. Cars idling too long, faces lurking in shadows, whispers slipping away as he passed. His instincts sharpened. Marcus joined him at the truck, brow furrowed. "They're circling harder," he muttered. "I've seen this before. They're building up to something loud." Darius stayed calm, his voice steady. "Noise doesn't win. It burns out. We hold steady." Marcus shook his head. "Steady doesn't stop bullets if they come for the kids." The words echoed, heavy as stone. The detectives visited later that night, urgency clear in their tone. "We intercepted chatter," Marlowe said. "Two gangs, maybe more, talking about hitting the rec center. They want to prove you can't stand against numbers. They're not just testing you anymore, Cole. They're trying to destroy the symbol." Darius's jaw tightened. "Then it's not about me anymore. It's about the children." "Exactly," Marlowe said. "Which is why we're posting officers here. But understand, if this escalates, it's not going to be quiet. It's going to be a war in the middle of your sanctuary." Darius looked out the window at the quiet street, picturing the kids' faces. "Then we have to remind them discipline still beats chaos, even here." The following day, tensions erupted. As parents dropped off their children at the rec center, shouts broke out on the corner. A group of young men, trident symbols spray-painted over with red slashes on their jackets, taunted supporters who had gathered nearby. "You think he protects you? He can't even protect himself," one shouted. Supporters answered back, chants rising, fists in the air. Darius stepped outside, raising both hands. His voice cut through the noise. "Enough. Respect isn't shouting. Respect is restraint. Go home." For a moment, the crowd quieted, but phones were already filming, and within minutes the scene hit the internet. The calm confronts the streets. That night, Marcus confronted him in the kitchen. "You can't keep letting them write this story. Every time you step outside, cameras twist it into legend. You either take control of it, or you'll drown in it." Darius sighed, rubbing his temples. "I don't want control. I want peace." Marcus leaned forward, voice sharp. "Peace doesn't come free. You taught me that overseas. Now you need to teach it here. Whether you like it or not, you are their symbol, and symbols don't get to hide." Darius stared at the trident under his sleeve. The ink felt heavier than flesh. Across the city, the gangs finalized their plan. A dozen young men gathered in a warehouse, chains, bats, and a few pistols gleaming under bare bulbs. "Tomorrow night," their leader declared, "we hit the rec center, not the kids, just him. But we make it loud, we make it public, we break the calm once and for all." Their voices roared in agreement, the hunger for pride blinding them to the danger. Meanwhile, Darius sat alone at his desk, notebook open. He wrote, "The noise grows louder. They want to break me, to prove calm is weakness. But calm isn't weakness, it's choice. The children believe in me. The city looks to me. The gangs want me gone. I can't hide from any of it now. Marcus is right. Silence feeds the myth. But maybe words can shape it into truth. Maybe standing calm isn't just survival. It's a message the city needs." He underlined the last line. "Calm must stand, even in fire." As the clock ticked past midnight, headlights flared outside his window. A car idled too long, figures shifting inside. Darius didn't move, didn't panic. He simply sat with his notebook open, pen resting across the page. Because he knew the storm was coming. And when it did, he would have to prove, once again, that calm was stronger than chaos. Saturday evening draped itself over Norfolk with an uneasy silence. The air felt heavier, like the city itself was holding its breath. Darius locked up the rec center as usual, but his instincts thrummed louder than the buzz of the streetlights. The storm wasn't distant anymore, it was here. Marcus waited by the truck, scanning the shadows. "Feels wrong tonight," he muttered. "It is wrong," Darius replied, his voice steady. "They're coming." And they did. Headlights erupted at both ends of the street. 2 cars screeched in, doors flying open, a dozen young men spilling out. Bats and chains glinted in the glow, and 2 pistols flashed under trembling hands. The gang had come loud, just as promised. Neighbors peeked through curtains. Phones lit up instantly. The whole block was watching, some with fear, some with curiosity, some with cameras eager to capture whatever came next. The leader stepped forward, sneers stretched across his face. "So this is the calm. Let's see if you stay calm when we break your center." His crew spread out, circling. The chant started from the sidelines, supporters yelling, "Respect, go home," while detractors jeered, "No vigilantes." The street became an arena. Marcus shifted beside Darius, whispering, 12 men, half-armed. This isn't restraint, it's suicide. Darius's eyes stayed forward. "No, it's discipline. Watch!" The first swing came fast, a chain snapping through the air toward his head. Darius ducked, stepping in close, twisting the attacker's wrist until the chain fell harmlessly to the pavement. He shoved the man aside without striking, his movements sharp but measured. Another rushed with a bat. Darius sidestepped, swept his leg, and the bat clattered away. Again, no punch, no rage, only precision. But the noise was louder now. Screams, chants, the shrill cries of children inside the rec center. 2 men raised pistols, their hands shaking with more fear than courage. Darius raised his voice, steady as stone. "Drop them, now!" For a moment, the standoff froze. The gang members' eyes flickered, caught between pride and terror. The crowd held its breath. One gun lowered, slipping from sweaty hands to the street. The other hesitated, finger trembling on the trigger. Marcus's jaw clenched. "He's gonna shoot." But Darius stepped forward, voice cutting like steel. "You pull that trigger, you're not proving strength, you're proving fear owns you. Is that what you want? To be ruled by fear?" The young man's chest heaved, sweat dripping down his temple. Then, with a sharp cry, he flung the pistol to the ground and stumbled back. Blue lights flashed at the far end of the street, sirens wailed, growing louder. Patrol cars surged in, officers pouring out, weapons drawn. "Down! Everyone down!" The gang broke instantly, some raising hands, others bolting into alleys, only to be tackled by police. Within minutes, the chaos was reduced to cuffs and shouts, the street thick with flashing lights and shaken neighbors. Through it all, Darius stood unmoving, calm anchoring him like stone in the storm. Marcus exhaled, shaking his head. "You just stared down 12 armed men without throwing a punch, again." Darius's voice was quiet. "Not again. Still, calm doesn't end." Detective Marlowe strode over, coat flapping in the wind. His eyes swept the scene, then landed on Darius. "You know what this means, don't you?" Darius stayed silent. "You're not just the calm anymore. You're legend. This whole block saw you stop blood without violence. The city won't forget it. Neither will the gangs." Darius looked past him at the rec center, where Naomi and the other kids peered out from the windows, wide-eyed and trembling. Their faces held awe, but also relief. They were safe. That was all that mattered. Hours later, long after the flashing lights faded, Darius sat at his kitchen table. His notebook lay open, pen steady in his hand. He wrote, "Tonight they came with fire. They came to break me, to break calm. They brought fear and pride, but fear bent. Pride collapsed, calm held. I didn't strike, I didn't rage, I only stood. And that was enough." He paused, letting the weight of it settle. The city will twist it into myth again. They already are. But the truth is simple. Calm is choice. And tonight, choice saved lives. He underlined the last sentence twice, the ink pressing deep into the paper. Across Norfolk, the story spread before dawn. Videos flooded social media. Darius disarming weapons with precision, his voice cutting through chaos, the gang folding under calm command. Headlines roared, "The calm saves Norfolk again." Supporters painted new murals by sunrise. Critics warned louder than ever that one man had become bigger than the law. But no matter the debate, the truth was clear. Darius had become the city's symbol, whether he wanted it or not. And deep down he knew the final test was still ahead, because the only easy day was yesterday. The following week, Norfolk was no longer the same city. Streets carried fresh murals of the Trident, news vans never left the rec center's block, and chants of the calm rang out at rallies. But alongside admiration, fear and anger spread just as fast. Politicians argued in chambers, gangs whispered revenge in basements, and ordinary families worried about living in the crossfire of a legend they had not asked for. City Hall called for an emergency forum, urging citizens to come. By evening, the auditorium was packed wall to wall. Parents, students, reporters, protesters. On one side, people waved signs reading, "Respect calm." On the other, banners cried, "No vigilantes." The air vibrated with division. At the front, council members argued among themselves. "He's an inspiration," one said. "He's a danger," another retorted. Voices clashed until they turned to the only man who hadn't spoken. "Mr. Cole," the chairwoman said, "this began with you. The city needs to hear your voice." All eyes turned. Cameras shifted. For a moment, silence pressed heavy. Darius stepped forward slowly, shoulders steady, eyes calm. He looked out at a city ready to break under its own noise. "I never asked for this," he began, voice steady but low. "I never asked to be a symbol. I'm not a hero. I'm not a vigilante. I'm a man who chose calm when chaos screamed." The room quieted, drawn by the gravity in his tone. "You cheer me," he said, glancing at the supporters. "You fear me," he added, meeting the eyes of his critics. "But both of you are wrong. Respect isn't fear. Calm isn't myth. Discipline isn't for one man, it's for everyone." He paused, letting the words sink in. "You think gangs fold because of me? They fold because of what they saw in themselves. Fear, pride, weakness. I didn't break them, they broke themselves. All I did was stand calm long enough for them to see it." A murmur rippled through the room. Even critics leaned in now. Darius's voice grew firmer. "This city doesn't need murals of me. It doesn't need chants of my name. It needs calm in its homes, in its schools, in its streets. It needs people who refuse to let fear and pride run their lives. If you make me into a legend, you miss the truth. And the truth is, calm is a choice every one of you can make." For a moment, there was no shouting, no chants, only silence heavy with thought. Then, from the back, a sudden commotion. 3 young men, faces tense, tried to rush forward. Supporters screamed, protesters shoved. Officers moved instantly, tackling them before they reached the stage. One of the boys shouted, "You think you're untouchable!" The crowd erupted again, chants colliding in a storm. But Darius raised a hand, his voice cutting through like a blade. "Stop!" The auditorium froze. "Do you see?" he said, pointing toward the restrained youths. "This is what pride does. This is what fear does. You came here to break calm, and now you're in chains. Not because of me, because of your own choices." The boys fell silent, eyes darting away. Darius turned back to the crowd. "Don't clap for me. Don't curse me. Look at yourselves. Calm isn't mine, it's yours. Take it, live it, teach it. That's the only way the city finds peace." When he stepped back, the room was hushed. The council chairwoman whispered, "Thank you, Mr. Cole." Outside, reporters swarmed, but for once there were no chants, no jeers. People walked away quiet, thoughtful, as though carrying a weight heavier than slogans. That night, Darius sat at his kitchen table with his notebook. He wrote slowly, deliberately. Tonight, the city saw the truth. Not legend, not myth. Calm stood in the open and proved itself. I am not their protector. I am not their hero. I am a mirror. If they see fear, it is their fear. If they see strength, it is their strength. Calm is not mine to keep. It belongs to all of them. He underlined one final sentence. Respect is restraint. Calm is peace, and peace is strength. Closing the book, he leaned back, eyes drifting to the tattoo under his sleeve. The trident no longer felt like a burden. It felt like a reminder that choice, not noise, defined a man. In the weeks that followed, the noise began to fade. Gangs lost their fire, too afraid to challenge what had become unshakable discipline. The murals remained, but fewer were painted. The chants softened, replaced by quieter conversations about what calm really meant. The city had not crowned a vigilante. It had not built a myth. It had been handed a mirror, and for the first time in years, Many dared to look. And as Darius walked through the streets, children waved less like fans and more like students greeting their teacher. That was enough. Justice wasn't delivered in handcuffs alone. Justice was when a city finally learned that fear collapses, pride destroys, but calm endures. And that night, with the city finally beginning to breathe easier, Darius closed his eyes, whispering the mantra that had always carried him through. The only easy day was yesterday. This time, he believed tomorrow might be just a little easier.